Really is a pleasure to be here, an honor just to see. I mean, I had no idea how many amazing people were going to be in this room today. So I'm going to try and just make a few points in terms of how I see this incredibly important challenge and an opportunity, and congratulate SVP on taking this bold move on the Million Livelihoods or Million Jobs initiative. And I hope that turns into 5 million and 10 million, because as Ravi said, we need 1 million jobs a month in India alone. I started thinking initially, used to treat jobs and livelihoods as a sector. I come from the development sector. I'm more of a non-profit guy. We think about health and education and all these things. And increasingly now at the foundation, we really look at this as sort of central to everything. If we look at what's happening every year in the World Economic Forum that's going on right now and the discussions around inequality, if we look at how societies are transforming or not in the way that we would like them to, the whole question of an inclusive economy rests on the ability to create and generate new jobs and new economic opportunities and livelihoods that are not just decent but good, that are going to provide people pathways for upward mobility. They're going to enable stability in people's lives so that people have a sense of control and the ability to know what's coming next, and to enable people to have a level playing field, the ability to participate in that economy, to feel like I know the rules of the game, whether I'm a street vendor in Bangkok where I live, or a small business or a farmer, that I actually know how to navigate the economy and feel that I can move forward with a degree of confidence. So we do have to talk about not just jobs and livelihoods, but good jobs in the context of a rapidly changing world. And that's going to enable these societies and our economies to transform in that direction. There's a lot of discussion about technology, and without offering myself positioning myself as offering a contrarian view, I do think while it's disrupting formal labor markets in very worrying ways, and we see that discourse in the US a lot right now and in Europe, it's also been a great leveler for the poor, in particularly in the developing world, who were always excluded. They were always behind the curve. They were always at the lower end of the tilted playing field. So if we think about the role that ICT or fintech now has been playing in allowing new connections to be made, new forms of mobilization to take place and organizing to happen, new ways to sort of bypass the sort of rationed public infrastructure that many developing countries have. I mean, we see in the foundation still an explosion of innovation and opportunity that's going to be enabled through this sort of technology and applications for which we don't even fully understand as yet. I mean, if you think back in India to the arrival of mobile telephony, when was it, in 95, 96? Although it was 16 rupees a minute at that point with Airtel. Think about the experience of a small farmer in the late 90s who moved from becoming a price taker to being a little bit more of a price maker, because they were able to actually just know on a day-to-day basis what was happening with pricing in the markets. It fundamentally transformed the power relationship of poor people, low-income earners in the marketplace. And you can extend that to a dozen or more other experiences and examples that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years, not just in India, but around the world, certainly in East Africa, where mobile payments, for example, have been so transformative. So yes, there's a real risk around technology in the context of jobs, but I would take technology any day over a return to feudalism, for example, that existed 50 years ago in how people had to navigate markets. And even in the developed world, where we're seeing the risks around the move to independent work or shift work, the sort of gig economy, the sharing economy, call it what you want, there's a lot of, if you like, defensive applications and innovation happening now that we're involved with as well, that are of real importance. If you take shift work, I think independent work in the US now accounts for about 25% of all employment, and certainly for the majority of employment growth. So you're seeing a lot of new innovations emerge around how do you manage benefits, for example, when people are moving from, people have 3 different jobs, the idea of portable benefits. How do you even manage the whole process of organizing shift work in collective ways that give people and workers certain ability to represent their interests, to be able to have the ability to keep moving upwards and not feel like it's a race to the bottom. Ravi's piece that I read a couple of days ago in Mint talked about this idea of collective action, and I couldn't agree more. And certainly I think that sort of fundamentally embodies the way we try and work. For me, the biggest market gap right now is innovation in cross-sector partnerships. We have technology innovation that we know is going to drive forward, and we can see that many of you in the room are involved with that. We have financial innovations that are going to take us forward. But unless we bring together the kinds of actors that are in this room today through an initiative like this, we're really not going to ever see anything go to scale. If we think back to even to the milk marketing work that Anand the Dairy did in India, if you think back to what happened with mobile payments in East Africa, if you think about fair trade coffee in Colombia, look at the combination of actors that had to work, sometimes serendipitously, sometimes intentionally, in order to move that market forward in a way that was genuinely growing, sustainable, scalable. We have to find quicker ways to replicate that with an intentionality and a deliberate approach. So the last point I just want to say is, Ravi talked about YieldWise. There's another initiative here on off-grid energy. I think a lot of us in the philanthropic world, or as donors or as investors, who are trying to solve big problems need to start seeing that effort as a hub for innovation around employment and livelihoods in particular. So whether you're working on energy or on health or on education or whatever that sector is, I think the cross-cutting opportunity here is to innovate in ways that we haven't even fully discovered around jobs and livelihoods. In the work we're doing on energy, yes, there's a provision of electricity to communities, but what it's really doing is opening up an entirely new ecosystem of opportunities to partner with livelihoods organizations, small enterprises, et cetera. And how do we converge that and get the coordination going around that? And that's our role as a philanthropy, is to help try and integrate across that ecosystem, to fund the innovation that nobody else is going to fund because it's more of a public good, and to then help play a role in bringing that convergent collective action movement together that Ravi talked about. So that's why we're here, and we really look forward to today's deliberation and hope to meet a lot of you in the sidelines as well. Thank you.